Welcome everyone. My name is Grace Browning. I am the former principal harpist of the Dallas Opera and currently principal harpist of the Santa Fe Opera. I fell in love with opera 6 years ago when I joined the Dallas Opera, my very first job with the fabulous Emmanuel Villaume. I am so excited to share this new series with you all, which will feature some of our favorite opera moments together on and off stage and in the pit and beyond. Today's show has some very, very special guests. Of course, my beloved maestro, Emmanuel Villaume, the fabulous composer, Heggie, and the beautiful soprano, Ailyn Pérez, and fabulous bass, Solomon Howard. So we are going to kick things off by welcoming the one and only Emmanuel Villaume. Hi, Emmanuel.
Unmute. That's the of the meeting. Yes, here I am. So good to see you, Grace.
It's so good to see you. I love that you cued your own entrance. That I wouldn't expect anything less from a conductor like you. Seriously, it is so good to see you. You know, I think about you all the time. I mean, not in a weird way, but you really are the reason why I, sort of became an opera harpist. And I have to say, I don't know if this was obvious, but when I first joined the Dallas Opera, I had actually only played 2 operas before in my life. One of them was La Boheme, which thankfully was on the audition. And the other one was an Oliver Newson opera, a Higgledy-Piggledy Pop. So it was like both extremes. And I have to say, for me, it was the most challenging musical experience I'd ever had, which was sort of a reason why at the time I was like, wow, this is super hard, but I actually really, really love it, And I think I became such a better musician after completely devoting myself to opera. I mean, what is your, I know that you do symphony and opera, obviously. I mean, what do you think is sort of the biggest difference musically between them?
Well, I think, you can't divide the two. And the same composer will, I take the example of Mozart, writing his symphonies, he wrote the same operas. You need to understand that music the same way. If a musician has only a specialty in symphonic, you have something missing in these symphonic skills because it doesn't have the sense of drama, storytelling that you need to have. I do remember, Grace, your first audition, and what struck me right away is that you were not only playing the harp technically perfectly, you were singing with the harp. You were bringing a whole poetical universe to the harp. So it was going beyond the dimension of the instrument to the very soul of the artistic power of music and the human spirit through music. So that's what's there. And then, you have people who have been in the pit for 20 years, they still cannot accompany, or they still cannot have this weird connection with the other people on stage or in the pit or with the audience. And there are people for whom it's natural. I think if you're a musician, these things are natural. Then you develop these talents through time.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. And I mean, I learned so much from you, but especially what I love about your conducting is that it's always, you're obviously, you're always just breathing with the singer. And then in a way, rather than being super controlling, you're just encouraging everyone to just listen and play with each other. So learning to really use my ears and to be able to anticipate. I also remember, and I love your style, and it's so dramatic, and which is, of course it needs to be. This is opera. But funny story about my audition, I happened to have forgotten my contacts that day. So I ended up actually borrowing my best friend's. She had an extra pair of contacts that were twice the prescription of mine. So, and I almost didn't even wear anything, but I went in there. I was like, well, I think I should be able to see. So I'm looking over at you. And I remember I was so glad because we were doing Boheme and you said, okay, now I'm going to conduct. Ready? And you lifted your hands and I said, oh, thank God I could see him. So, never a dull moment in opera. We also, actually, we have some great photos of us because once you started me in the opera world, I joined the Santa Fe Opera a few years later. I saw you there for my first season, La Fanciulla del West, Puccini. So amazing. And then a few years later, I bumped into you at the Met Opera cafeteria. Here are some pictures that we took. Ready? the one on the left, that was after like, I think our second season together. And then the one on the right, that was just like, I literally was buttering my bagel and I looked up and you were like, well, hello. And that was when I was subbing for Tosca, which is another opera that I first learned with you. So such happy memories.
Well, it's great always to have you in the pit. And, you know, what you say is true. We're connecting, and I don't think it's about what I want. It's not.
Right.
I cannot, if I decide very forcefully, everybody has to be here, it's not going to work. So yeah. I am here to really just help people be in the same place musically.
Yeah.
And maybe I have a special role in this, but which is way after the composer, and sometimes really in the backseat from other people who are in the live performance. So it's like you have a big mass of water in front of you. If you go like this to it, you're never going to have it move. If you go gently, then it's going to move. And in that case, it needs to be together. There are musicians, you're talking about seeing or not seeing. There are musicians, in order to connect you don't even have to see them. You just have to feel it. You are going together through the path. And so it's like you are walking together. You're not saying, okay, I'm following him. You just decide to turn here and to move here, and you readjust the line in general. So you are one of those musicians in the pit where it's a natural conversation. We just go there, and if it's taking time, maybe it's the fingers, maybe it's just the atmosphere. I'm going to land after these 83 notes and a half right on the dome because we have the line together.
It's so fun. I mean, and that I have to say, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I feel so lucky because I mean, the Puccini harp parts, I mean, there's really, I don't think any other composer who really wrote so incredibly perfectly for the instrument in such a way that it's almost obligato. It's such a core part of the texture. And that even after, I mean, this last summer we did La Boheme like 14 times, which I think in my career has maybe been like 35, which is probably only a fraction of the ones that you have done. But right? But it's still like every time, it's just such a magical journey. And I mean, there's actually another opera we did together, which I think about a lot, which is Eugene Onegin. And I only recently figured out how to say it properly. It's, correct me if I'm wrong, Yevgeny Onegin. Is that right?
Sounds right to me.
Who's judging? So I have this, you know, the harp part in that is not major, but there is a fantasy that we play that's based on themes from the opera. So it's sort of my chance to get to be like the maestro of the harp. And I actually wrote some notes in here from our rehearsals together. That opening theme, that opening theme, you know, that sort of, and you said it's moving towards resolution, and then something stops it, you know, and then it grows again and grows again and grows again, and then something stops, right? And there's something about that. I mean, the story too. It's like there's so much love and longing, and then heartbreak, nothing, no fulfillment. So I thought maybe I could just play a little bit of this solo for you. It's a dedication. Kick us off with a little harp music. Okay, so here is Fantasy from Eugene Onegin. But it goes on. I know, right? Perfect timing.
It's great. I love it.
It's so good. It's a teaser. It's a teaser. I'll record the whole thing and I'll post it later. It's so good. Then anyway, the march starts. Yeah, I need that A. But anyway, it's so fun, isn't it?
The pedals to use, on harmonics and do it right away.
Oh yeah. I know that is a good trick that there have been operas, especially in Santa Fe, because the weather is so terrible. We'll just break strings, so it's like, okay, I can't play an A flat, but I can do a G sharp.
Exactly. That always amazes me. I mean, those pedaling, I could never figure it out, and I would be interested in how Jake sees this, in his own writing, but.
Yes.
You go to the books and you say, okay, that's what it's, and at the end I say, wow, the artist needs to know it. I don't need to know it. I just need to know that if I go back, I need to give them time to move their feet like crazy.
I love it, the little tap dance. Well, what a good segue to bring on the fabulous Jake Heggie, our wonderful composer here with us today. We have played so many amazing operas of his. Hi, Jake.
Hi, good to see you both.
So good to see you. Such an honor to have you. I have enjoyed your harp parts for years. And not only that, but getting to be a part of the productions that you have done with us. I wasn't here the first time that you did Moby Dick, but I was here when you did the Renaissance. What was that, like 2016? Was that right?
Yeah, 4 years ago.
Yep, we did Moby Dick and Great Scott together, and I just thought it would be so fun to chat about. I know you've had a long-standing relationship with Dallas Opera. What was the first opera that you ever premiered with us here?
Oh, Moby Dick. Yeah.
Oh, that was okay.
Oh, yeah, and that was the first idea for that started in 2005 when. I got a call from Jonathan Pell at the Dallas Opera, and Terrence McNally and I were in New York working on a piece for Renee Fleming called "At the Statue of Venus," a one-woman scene for soprano and piano. And Jonathan called, and Terrence and I, since we had written Dead Man Walking 5 years, had premiered it 5 years previous, had been looking for a big project to do. And so I told him that Jonathan had called me and told me that you were building a new opera house. It was going to be very bold. It was going to be very big. It was going to be red. And you were looking for a bold new American opera to open the season, or for the opening season. And so I said to Terrence, what do you think? And he said, well, there's only one thing I'd want to do, and that's Moby Dick. And I kind of went, Moby Dick? Well, that's bold. And unfortunately, Terrence wound up not writing that one because he became ill and he wasn't able to do it. But I did get to work with my great writing partner, Gene Shear, and we've worked together many, many, many times. And he's had a few operas at the Dallas Opera as a librettist. He's such a brilliant guy. And so his task, I think, almost was harder than mine because he had to take that massive novel and distill it into a workable 60-page libretto that would work on the stage and would allow a lot of space for music and still come in under 20 hours.
Not a Moby Dick cycle?
Yeah. No, if Wagner had written Moby Dick, it would have been 4 operas, at least 3, right?
Yeah.
But we wanted to do something that told the story and felt contemporary and real, still honored the source, but used the source as a springboard. And the big key for us was taking the first line of the novel, Call Me Ishmael, and putting it at the very end of the opera. In other words, we're earning that line and we're watching the character of Ishmael be born by watching him experience things as we experience them in the moment. And that really sort of opened it up. But that was my first association with the Dallas Opera. And it was such a great relationship all the way through, and being part of the first season in that magnificent opera house and working with all the great people there. We felt so welcomed and loved, and like people were really willing to go for it, because a new opera is not just about what the composer and the librettist put out there. It involves everybody, the whole company, the orchestra, the chorus, the cast, the conductor, the backstage crew, all the different, you know, costumes, sets, props, the front of house, all the administration, all the donors, all the audience, everyone is involved in the creation of a new opera. And that's how I got to know the Dallas opera community and the arts community. I have great friends who I'm still in touch with, in particular, Mary McDermott Cook and Kern Wildenthal, Kern and Marnie, great friends. But I know so many people in the Dallas area because of the opera company.
Well, and I feel like you became at that point a part of the TDO family and a part of our identity, really, as a company that does new operas. I mean, Emmanuel, was this your first time doing one of his?
That was my first time working on Jake music. Moby Dick is most probably the most important thing that Dallas Opera has done since its creation. And you know, I've done a lot of premieres of contemporary music. I've also done a lot of dernières, which is the first one and the last one. and some of it is unfair because some great pieces have never been redone. In my case with Jake and Moby Dick, I had the chance to have recordings. The piece had already an history when I did it. Maestro Summers conducted it for the premiere, but then it had already an history. And so, which was important for me and I guess also for Jake. So I had to go through all that history, and then working with Jake was very interesting because what he writes is clearly coming from a composer who has heard the music before it was on paper. He has felt the music, inhabited the music. So you have, just reading the score, a universe that's very clear. Then, of course, the work belongs to him, but not only to him. The work starts having a life. So I took a few liberties reading the score, think, what would I do with that score if I didn't hear any recordings before? So I did this, and then I had the feedback of Jake after we worked a little. And for me, I always have one principle when I do contemporary music. If the composer says something, even if I don't understand it, I'm going to do what he tells me. But there is a reason.
So good.
If he's a good composer,
you're very special that way.
You feel that, and I think if it's a composer I respect, like you, Jake, I know that if it doesn't work in the end, you're going to say, well, something is not working, and it's either the conductor, or it's my music, or it's the tempo we are choosing. In my experience, and we have not talked with Jake about this, composers like to hear the music very fast. Most of the composers I know, they always tell you go faster. And as you know, Grace, I am known as a fast conductor in general. If there is a chance to go fast, I will go fast. And what was very fascinating to me, because I love Moby Dick, it was one of my best experiences in the theater. And it was such an enriching, inspiring experience for all of us. And I was indeed somehow indulging in the music, you know, at first when we did it. And Jake told me, you know, great, but here, can you move this? And I said, oh, he doesn't like his music. And then I thought, okay, let me try. And then I got the point that Jake was making in the big arch. That means that those scenes where I was enjoying the beauty of the music and elongating it, then you pay a price in the long art of the evening. That's the kind of brain you need as a composer. But this is so rewarding and in a way easy to work with such pieces, because they are absolutely brilliantly written, and every performance you find a new diamond in that.
Well, you're very kind to say all those things. I have to say, when I'm writing, you're right. I do hear it before I put it down on the page, and then I work with it and shape it. And I do try to write clearly, but with space for the performers to make it their own. I don't want to ever micromanage the performers. The piece needs to breathe in the moment. And so I'm not a composer that tells you it has to be like this or nothing else. Because I figure a piece that can only be performed one way is actually probably not a very good piece. They need to breathe based on who's on stage, who's in the pit, who's leading. And so I try to leave that room. And also something you alluded to, I learn about the piece as it's being performed. I have this ideal version in my head, but the last character to show up in any opera is the audience. And you can think you know the piece really well, but until the audience is there, that's when you really start to learn. That's why Broadway shows have previews. So when Emmanuel conducted it, it had already been performed like 5 or 6 other places. So we'd gotten to know the piece and had made little cuts and changes and moved things around. Because when I learn about the pieces during the first, really it takes me about 3 full productions in different cities to really know what the piece is and what it wants to be, where it's too long, where it's not enough, so that we can shape it. And so, but then Emmanuel, what you did, and you were so generous too, the cast loved working with you, and and I loved what you did with it. And it was just, you were very generous. You called me, you said, okay, talk to me. Tell me what your response was. And I remember it was just like 2 or 3 places where I felt like it just was a little under and it just wanted to move along again, so you don't pay a price later.
Well, you know,
Joyce DiDonato's nickname for me is Jake, it's too slow, Heggie. Because I'm always telling her, it's too slow, move it.
You know, Jake, I mean, we always, you know, if I had the possibility to talk to Mozart, I would just stop everything and asking about every bar. Here, I have the possibility to talk to the composers. So it's I mean, why not use that? It's fantastic. And what you say about the audience as one of the main characters, this is exactly how Puccini was doing it. You know, his Bohème, his Tosca, his Butterfly. He was rewriting it and perfecting it after each time it was performed in a various city. And he was absolutely meticulous with this, and he had a great respect for the response from the audience. And I think this is the only way to do it.
Right.
Well, you know, I actually have some photos here, and we have a special archival clip as well. The lovely Karen Almond, of course, sent me over some great photos here, which we're going to pull up. And one of the most amazing things for me about getting to see this, Doug, whenever you're ready, we can take a look at those, is, oh, well, first of all, this is my view from the pit. Remember when the sailor, they would come over and put their little feet on the edge, and they were always like this close to my harp, and I was like, yes, it was so great. But we have a few other photos here. Okay, so, I mean, the set was just so incredible. I mean, the way that you were able to create this huge feeling of space, especially then in the next photo with the projections. Oh, that was an amazing part too. Okay, the one after that, let's take a look at this. I think, I mean, so incredible. So was that something that, I mean, how did this concept come about?
Well, I mean, that's when you have a brilliant director and design team, you know. I mean, Gene Shear and I are working on our own, you know, for years trying to envision this, and we have to be able to visualize it ourselves in order to write it, because that's what theater is. You know, everything springs from action and things that happen on the stage. That's where everything comes from.
And then
so
your
we
next
had a
one,
picture
Doug?
of it in our heads, but then we got a wonderful director, Leonard Folia, a wonderful designer, Robert Brill, wonderful videographer and projection designer, Elaine. And it was just, they worked together and came up with that whole concept. And I remember when I went to Robert's studio in New York, and they wanted to show me and Gene what they had thought of for all these different moments. And they started with the Starscape in the overture, and I just lost it. I was in tears. I said,
oh my gosh,
got it. This is exactly what this is supposed to be. And then when they had the ships come up on the wall, I mean, literally,
well, guess what?
Anything like that. So you're very lucky, you know. We all know how hard opera is because every single element has to fall into place so that the audience is completely immersed in the story and the music and the journey of it. If one thing is out of place, someone plays a wrong note, someone's wig is wrong, someone's character is cast, the production doesn't make sense, suddenly you're not in the drama. That's what you're paying attention to. And we were so lucky with this project that we had just like the perfect team, and it really just, it blossomed like that. It was so miraculous. But it takes, that's the magic of opera, when you have the right group of people together working on the right project, and it can just become something that none of you imagined individually.
That's so true. Well, actually, and the overture, I will always remember that. In fact, we actually have a clip of it right here that we're going to enjoy. And just, I mean, the starscape and the way, I mean, the ship, everything, it's just incredible. So here we go. We're going to take a listen. Yay!
I heard you in there.
Yes, I know, that made me so happy. Well done, miking the harp. It's not an easy task. So many great memories. I mean, bravo, Jake. It's just, it's really just so incredible. Well, I think this might be a good time to talk about your other amazing opera that I got to premiere with you, which is Great Scott. And we have, we will now welcome our next guest, Ailyn Pérez, who starred in that, as well as the fabulous Solomon Howard. Hey guys!
Oh,
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
glad to be here.
Jake and Emmanuel and Grace, it was so incredible. We got chills watching the intro to Moby Dick. Really amazing, astounding. Thank you.
I know. I feel like I'm in a planetarium. Like it's surreal. Actually, so this was great. Ailyn, both Ailyn and Solomon, I've known you both now for a while. Ailyn, I think we first met, it could have been actually during Great Scott, although I know you were we did also Manon together, Massenet's Manon.
We did, yes. Did we cross paths at Santa Fe in Faust by any chance?
Not in Faust, but Romeo et Juliet.
Oh, okay.
No. Mm-hmm. And that was super fun. And I have some fun pictures actually that we'll show later. And then, and then Solomon, of course, I think we had just met in Santa Fe Opera.
That's in 2016.
Yes, also Romeo and Juliet, and then Madame Butterfly together.
Romeo and Juliet, Don Giovanni, then Butterfly, and then last summer.
Bohème, I know.
Yeah.
So we've had so many.
Horseback riding together.
Oh yeah. Oh, lots of pictures of that coming up. But I know it's so fun. But it's so great. I mean, this is what I love about the opera world is that we just keep crossing paths everywhere we go, and that's so beautiful. We're just one big happy opera family. So, but Ailyn, your role in Great Scott was so fabulous. Tell us about that. Was this the first time you had gotten to perform Jake's music, or the first time you'd worked together personally?
Yes, it was. And I can tell you a funny story about markings in the score. You know, I think Emmanuel, I was experiencing some notes with Jake, and he's like, you know, these are written staccati, and I'm like, oh, but you know, and he's like, no, they're staccati. And I'm like, okay, I'll go home and vocalize, and redo that. And you know, singing Jake's music and Terrence's libretto was a thrill beyond. And of course, the cast and directed by Jack O'Brien, and to have, I mean, talk about, I feel, you know, the biggest blessing, even being here with you now, even being able to connect to you, and for everyone have take time to sit with one another and reflect. Great Scott was one of a huge pinch me moments. I mean, to be in a cast and have Joyce and Flicka and Roro the tenor and Patrick Summers conducting and Jake and Terrence, beloved, beautiful, brilliant, poetic Terrence there, giving us notes and guiding us through the whole piece was a mirror in a way about why opera matters. What does this all mean anyway? How do we take the attitude as a singer who is at the top of the career, and a singer who's just dying to get in there and take over? Everyone has, in a way, coming to understand the stereotypical or archetypal parts of their own personalities that, of course, art reflecting life, reflecting art. It was one of those kind of pieces that transforms you. I think that Jake and I had Jake, we met years ago at La Traviata, and I know it was at San Francisco, but I think we had a conversation even early on then that what pulls us into a story and what pulls us all together, and I think that'll keep hopefully connecting us in our way forward, is this emotional transformative connection. We have to take time to envision, to reflect, to create, and then to let it go and to see, you know, to nurture all those ripples and anyway, that's why it was such a big deal. It was such a big learning, performing. It was, of course, entertaining beyond. I mean, to have the policeman behind me of the Dallas.
Gosh. You know,
Dallas,
let me pull up some pictures here, because this you're gonna love this. We again, thank you. First of all, look how cute you guys are. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So sweet. Okay, what else? We also have, I think it's a picture of Jake and Terrence. There you guys are. Amazing.
Beautiful.
And then we have a full cast photo of the whole gang.
It was amazing.
I mean, what an all-star cast. I mean, I just couldn't believe how many amazing people we had in one space.
It's incredible.
It was awesome theater. It was
Yeah.
theatrical
Next.
in all of its ways. Jake, I that really, what you guys created is astounding, and just to have this kind of interaction
Next.
with you, and the way you cultivate your relationship with your artists and give everybody that space.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, it's such an
Well, the
honor.
real
It
gift,
really is an honor.
the real gift with writing that piece too was I knew everybody in it really well. So I could write the role, but I knew who I was dressing it on. So, it's for people not involved in opera. The reference point I give is like, suppose you're a screenwriter and a producer or a director says, we're gonna do a movie about Eleanor Roosevelt, and we'd like you to write the screenplay, and you're like, okay, fine. And they say, oh, and we have Meryl Streep as Eleanor Roosevelt. Well, all of a sudden you have clarity beyond clarity, and that's what knowing who I'm writing for gives me. So knowing that I was writing that role for you, Ailyn, was just like, anything's possible.
So true.
And I knew you would find all kinds of levels and all kinds of fun. And it's so funny because Tatiana in that is, she's the up and comer. She's hungry. She's ready to push anything aside for that opportunity, which is what you have to have in the business. And there's every chance if the wrong person's playing that role, you could really dislike that person.
Right.
But because you played it with such heart and so truthfully, everyone loved you and they wanted you to succeed. They understood what you were going through. The one that was having trouble with it was, of course, the Arden Scott character, because she was seeing she was going to have to make room and things were going to disappear as she was moving along in her career. And that was Joyce, who also played it so beautifully. The tension between the two of you was so fabulous. But knowing who I'm writing for is the biggest gift of all. One day it's going to be you, Solomon, okay?
I hope so soon.
I keep trying.
I remember being in DC when Moby Dick was there, and I went to a rehearsal because I was in the studio at Washington Opera.
Yeah.
Went to one of the rehearsals and was like, why am I not a part of this? And it was just this spectacle, and musically, visually, theatrically, everything was amazing. So I do hope that we get to work together soon.
Yeah, me too. Well, I remember the first time when I was like working with listening to young artists, at the studio, and you came in and sang, and it was just like my life changed. I'll never forget it.
Oh, wow.
You came in that room and opened your mouth, and everyone just felt it right to their core,
Wow.
because it comes from your heart.
Absolutely.
You sing from your heart, and you sing with your whole being,
Absolutely.
like you, Ailyn, and it moved so much. I'll never forget it.
Oh,
Seriously, I can remember you walking in and singing, and just like, that's it. There it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm
I
honored
love
you
that.
say that. I'm honored.
That's so true. I know you guys are so amazing. And, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't get a little opportunity to go back and hear Ailyn's amazing performance of the Starry, Starry Spangled Banner. This was, again, such a highlight of the show. And even in the pit, we were like, oh my God. Like it was, obviously you sounded amazing, but it was also so hilarious. And the way you performed it is incredible. So let's take a listen.
And I actually set it up for a sec.
Yes. Oh, please do. Yeah, please.
So Tatiana Bakst is a young singer from probably Russia. And she is in the United States making her American debut in this new opera to help save this company called American Opera. And by chance, the local football team is in the Super Bowl, and it's in that town. So they had asked the superstar Arden Scott to sing the Star Spangled Banner for it. And she said, I just can't. I've got this huge role. I'm trying to save this company. And so Tatiana takes note and gets herself in there, and she winds up singing it. They even ask her at one point, do you know the Star Spangled Banner? And she goes, no, but I can sing anything at the time. So anyway, she does, and she makes it her own. And the only instruction I had from Terrence McNally in the libretto was she comes out and sings the Star Spangled Banner, and within seconds, it is unrecognizable, but it is purely her own, and it is fabulous in its own way.
That is amazing. Oh, perfect setup. Okay, great. Let's take a listen.
Peace,
Ailyn, oh my gosh.
Jane,
Was that so much fun?
that was surreal. I had no idea how much I cut people off, the men off, Maestro Villaume, before I knew you.
Oh my God, so funny. It's I remember in the first time you did that with the guys in the rehearsal room, and you made it seem so easy and so natural. I think I told you this story before. And you came up to me afterwards, like wide-eyed with terror, and you were like dripping with sweat. You were like, that was so terrifying. It's like, really? So much fun.
Oh my God. I threw in, you even wrote an E flat in there, and we threw everything in. It was like, oh my gosh. I was singing for my life.
You make it look so easy. It's ridiculous. Well, speaking of Starry Spangled Banners, I do believe that Ailyn and I, we have a very Starry Spangled photo for you guys here. This is from our summers in Santa Fe. It's so amazing, but actually we spent what was it? I guess it was the 4th of July. This was like 2016. And then years later, I spent the next 4th of July with Solomon and friends in at Ghost Ranch. Let's see, where's the next photo, Dougie? There we go. Yeah, and there they are, the same pants. Thank you very much. So this is fun. And by the way, the other friend on the horse there is Ebony Thomas, who is, Emmanuel, your new piccolo player. That's Ebony. Yeah, she's cool. So fabulous. She was singing, she's playing with us. And so a couple more photos. So the four of us, we've had so much fun over the summers. And so I thought this might be a nice chance for us to reminisce a little bit about Santa Fe here. I think there's maybe one more. Oh yeah, and there's Solomon looking so dapper in his cool hat and cool coat. This was actually after I got tenure with Santa Fe Opera this past summer. And this is at La Fonda. This is, I know, it's the best view in town. So last summer, Solomon, we had so much fun. We played La Boheme together. And you were, I'm sorry, what was your?
Sang the role of Colline.
Colline, of course, yes. And this was so fun. We had Yader Bignamini conducting, who is so much fun. And and the fun thing about Santa Fe too is that we don't just perform, 5-6 times. It's usually like 12 to 14 performances. So really get to know it by the end, and it was just so much fun. So I thought, so we can maybe close today with some performances. So we did something fun today. We basically had a very long sort of FaceTime Zoom rehearsal yesterday, working out the logistics of this, and I recorded sort of a harp arrangement of sorry, how do you say it, Solomon? Vecchiazzimara, so beautiful, and you just slayed so hard this summer. So I thought, so maybe we can pipe it in on your end, and if you want to share a little snippet with us.
Sure, let's go.
Okay, let's see if this works.
Vecchiazzimara, senti, io resto al pianto a scendere il sacro monte ordevi. Le mie grazie ricevi, mai non curvasti la gorra rossa ai ricchi ed ai potenti. Passar nelle tue tasche come in antri tranquilli, filosofi e poeti. Ora che i giorni lieti fuggir ti dico addio, fedele amico mio. Performing, so.
And that's such a tender moment too, right? This is when Mimi is on her way out, and you sell your coat, and you're so generous.
Selling my coat to hopefully get some money to get her some medication that she really needs.
You're so thoughtful, Solomon.
Speaking of medication, it's, looking for a vaccine, I guess.
Oh, yeah, very relevant.
Right, very relevant.
Very relevant.
The sacrifice that you make for others.
That's right. That's right. Well,
that's what it is.
That's right. And here we are. It's, this is a good point. So, and I've been thinking of both of you because we just got the news that Santa Fe Opera is canceled for this summer, which is so sad. And of course, Ailyn and we were going to get to perform Rusalka together.
Yeah, our first.
I know, our first, but it wouldn't be the last. So that's the good news, is that we will get to do it again sometime. But there is a beautiful moment for us that we share, the song To the Moon, which is so fun. And it has such a big heart part in it that it sort of ends up, it made such a perfect sort of arrangement, really. So this was really fun to work on together. Can you tell us, and you sung Rusalka a bunch of times, right? Or is this?
No, it was going to be my role debut. And so that's what makes Santa Fe such, beyond being the land of enchantment, the company, and also the Dallas Opera, and many of our companies are places that we go to debut a new role, to have a season, as long as Santa Fe Opera gives us all an opportunity to live with the role over more than 3 performances, and even longer still, even over probably 3 months of rehearsal and workshopping. So when Jake was talking about, how Broadway gets its previews for editing of the shows, I mean, in a way, the voice, or as artists, we almost need 3 productions to kind of get a feel for the character and beyond a debut to grow in that way. So That's yeah. We're gonna miss that, but yeah. The check was also tricky too, so it gives me more time to work on that as well.
Check your check, girl.
Yeah. Check. But,
Well,
I'm so glad we have this chance to put this together, even in this way. It's like.
yeah. Well, I mean, it was so special. I mean, we're on the phone at like, I don't know, midnight last night, and we're going back and forth. And I was like, okay, so how do you phrase this? And then she's singing to me and I'm playing it back, and she's singing to me and I'm playing. I mean, it was so intimate. And this is sometimes what you don't always get when I'm in the pit and when you're up there. Absolutely. So that's why, I mean, these connections are so special. And that's something that's so special about you both, is how you're always so connected with the musicians in the pit. And we'd always, you'd always come say hi, down, swing by the harbor room, have a drink after the show, because we really are this big team.
It's a family, yeah. We rely on one another to do what we do. So, we can't do it without you. You can't do it without us.
I know.
So we think,
So this
and
is
just to reiterate again and connect this whole together. It really is, again, what Jake was saying about even creating an opera, as we're living with even all of these other well-known or lesser performed works, it's so important to have that in our mind, that it took so much time for the librettist and the composer to write and symbolize what they need from us, the interpreters, and then to have the extra time to have the discussion and everything. Thank you for showing this visually to your TDO family, and also for all of us to have a chance to say thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll hear a little song to the moon, and let's say, and we do look forward to, this won't be the last time. I think we're going to continue to find ways to perform virtually, and so let this be sort of a preview of what's to come. Mwah. Amazing. Well done. And certainly I think it will be easier when we get to do it together, and I can't wait.
I can't wait either. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, a huge thank you to all of you. Thank you, Solomon, Ailyn. Thank you, Jake. You are so incredible. Thank you, Emmanuel. Love you so much. Until next time, be well. Thank you, guys.
Everyone take care.
Love you all.
We love you. We love you.
Thank you, Grace, for bringing us together. Thanks, Dallas Opera.
Yes, a huge thanks to Dallas Opera, a huge thanks to Annie Penner, Caroline Walker, David Lomelli, and behind the scenes, let's give a big round of applause to Doug Ashbaugh for doing all the tech, bringing in these photos, bringing in the videos. Bravo, Doug. Thank you, thank you. And we will see you next week for a special episode with friends from the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. See you then.
Take care.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.